The hospital room was wrapped in that peculiar silence that only exists in places where life hangs in balance. Machines hummed softly, their digital displays casting pale blue light across sterile white walls. The antiseptic smell mixed with something else, the heavy weight of unspoken fears and whispered prayers that seemed to settle into every corner of the pediatric wing. Down the hallway, footsteps echoed against polished linoleum floors. Heavy, deliberate steps that seemed to carry the weight of a decision that had already sent shockwaves across social media. The steps paused outside room 314, where a small nameplate read, "Ephraim Calder," in careful handwriting. Inside the room, 8-year-old Ephraim lay propped against pillows that seemed to swallow his fragile frame. Tubes snaked from his thin arms to machines that beeped steadily, marking time in a rhythm that had become the soundtrack of his shortened life. His eyes, too large for his gaunt face, stared at the ceiling with the kind of exhaustion that comes not from physical exertion but from fighting a battle no child should ever have to face. Leora Penniman sat in the chair beside his bed, her hand resting gently on the blanket near his arm. She had been there for 18 hours straight, watching for any sign of improvement, any flicker of the vibrant boy who had once filled their house with laughter and boundless energy. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, but she had long since stopped checking them. The outside world and its noise seemed irrelevant when your entire universe had shrunk to the space between these four walls. The footsteps stopped. A shadow appeared in the doorway, hesitating for a moment that stretched like eternity. Ephraim's eyes moved slowly toward the entrance, and something shifted in his expression. Not excitement, not joy, but a kind of quiet recognition that someone had come just for him. The figure stepped into the room, and the machines seemed to beep a little softer, as if even they understood that something important was about to happen. Ephraim's lips moved slightly, forming words too quiet to hear. But in that moment, with his eyes fixed on his unexpected visitor, everyone in the room knew that whatever happened next would change everything. The visitor moved closer to the bed, and Ephraim's voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence with words that would soon echo far beyond the walls of that small hospital room. 3 hours earlier, Corbett Winslow had been pacing his office on the 15th floor of a gleaming downtown Kansas City building, his phone pressed against his ear as he delivered what might have been the most difficult conversation of his professional career. The charity gala he had spent 8 months organizing was supposed to begin in 4 hours, and his keynote speaker had just delivered news that would send his carefully orchestrated event into chaos. "I understand this puts you in an impossible position, Corbett." Travis Kelce's voice came through the phone, steady but with an underlying tension that Corbett had never heard before. "I know there are 500 people expecting me to be there tonight, and I know how much work you've put into this event." Corbett stopped pacing and stared out the window at the city skyline, trying to process what he was hearing. The Children's Foundation annual gala was the biggest fundraising event of the year, with corporate sponsors, major donors, and media coverage that had taken months to arrange. Travis's appearance alone was expected to raise over $2 million for pediatric cancer research. "Can you tell me what's happened?" Corbett asked, though part of him already suspected that whatever had prompted this call was something that made his gala seem trivial by comparison. "There's a little boy," Travis said quietly. "His name is Ephraim Calder. He's 8 years old, and he's in the final stages of leukemia. His mother reached out through the foundation, and Corbett, they don't think he has much time left. Maybe days." The weight of those words settled over Corbett like a heavy blanket. He had been in nonprofit work for 15 years, and he had learned to balance compassion with practical consideration. But there were moments when the human element made all the spreadsheets and schedules seem meaningless. "His favorite thing in the world is football," Travis continued. "His mom says he watches every game, knows every stat, dreams about playing in the NFL someday. She asked if there was any way I could visit him before." Travis's voice trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Corbett closed his eyes and made a decision that would cost his organization hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue and months of damaged relationships with sponsors. "Go," he said simply. "Go see that little boy." "The backlash is going to be immediate," Travis warned. "Social media is already starting to pick up the story about the cancellation. People are going to be angry before they know why." "Let them be angry," Corbett replied, surprising himself with how quickly the words came. "We'll figure out the rest later. Some things are more important than galas." Within 30 minutes of ending the call, Corbett's prediction about social media had proven devastatingly accurate. Travis Kelce no-show was trending on Twitter, with thousands of comments expressing outrage about the last-minute cancellation. Attendees who had paid $500 per plate were demanding refund. Corporate sponsors were questioning their partnerships. Local news stations were already preparing stories about the celebrity who had left a charity hanging. But none of that mattered to Travis as he drove through the quiet streets toward Children's Mercy Hospital. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, and his mind raced with questions about what he would find when he arrived. He had visited sick children before as part of his charitable work, but this felt different, more personal, more urgent. The hospital parking garage was nearly empty at this hour, just a few cars scattered across the vast concrete expanse. Travis parked in a spot near the elevator and sat for a moment in the silence, trying to prepare himself for what lay ahead. He had brought a football, signed, of course, and a team jersey in Ephraim's size. Simple gifts that felt inadequate, given the enormity of what this family was facing. The elevator ride to the pediatric wing seemed to take forever. Travis watched the numbers climb. 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, each one bringing him closer to a meeting that would test everything he thought he knew about the weight of human connection. Juniper Voss was waiting for him when the elevator doors opened. She had been Ephraim's primary nurse for the past 3 weeks, and she had developed the kind of protective instinct that comes from watching children fight battles they shouldn't have to face. Her expression was professional but warm, the look of someone who had learned to balance hope with reality. "Mr. Kelce," she said quietly, extending her hand, "thank you for coming. I need to prepare you for what you're going to see. Ephraim had a difficult day yesterday. He's very weak, and he's been in and out of consciousness. His mother is with him, and she's holding on by a thread." They walked down the hallway together, past rooms filled with other young patients and their families, each carrying their own burden of fear and hope. The pediatric wing at night had a different energy than during the day, quieter, more intimate, as if the darkness created a cocoon where the most important conversations could happen without the intrusion of the outside world. "He knows you're coming," Juniper continued. "When his mother told him this morning it was the first time we've seen him smile in days, he asked her to help him practice what he was going to say to you. 8 years old, and he's worried about making a good impression." Travis felt something twist in his chest at those words. Here was a child facing the end of his life, and he was concerned about saying the right thing to a stranger who played a game for a living. The perspective was both heartbreaking and humbling. They stopped outside room 314, and Juniper placed her hand gently on Travis's arm. "There's no script for this," she said softly. "Just follow his lead. He'll let you know what he needs." Travis nodded and took a deep breath, understanding that he was about to cross a threshold that would change him in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. Beyond that door was a little boy who had asked his mother to arrange his hair and practice his words for a meeting that might be one of the last meaningful interactions of his short life. The handle turned easily under his hand, and Travis stepped into a room where time seemed to move differently, where every moment carried the weight of its potential to be the last. The first thing Travis noticed was how small Ephraim looked against the hospital bed. The second thing was how his eyes never left Travis's face from the moment he entered the room. There was an intensity in that gaze that seemed far beyond his 8 years, as if illness had compressed a lifetime of understanding into his young frame. Leora Penniman rose from her chair beside the bed, and Travis could see immediately that she was running on nothing but love and determination. Her clothes were wrinkled from sleeping in hospital chairs, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, but her eyes held the fierce protectiveness of a mother who would fight heaven and earth for just one more day with her son. "Ephraim," she said softly, "this is Travis, the one we've been talking about." Travis approached the bed slowly, not wanting to overwhelm the boy or intrude too quickly into this sacred space between mother and child. He had done hospital visits before, but something about this moment felt different, more fragile, more precious, as if the air itself might shatter if he moved too quickly. "Hey there, Ephraim," Travis said, his voice gentler than his usual confident tone. "I heard you're a football fan." Ephraim nodded slightly, his movements careful and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but every word was clear and purposeful. I know all your stats from last season. Mom helped me look them up on her phone. The simple statement hit Travis harder than he had expected. Here was a child who was spending his final days memorizing football statistics, finding joy in numbers achievement that belonged to someone he had never met. It was both beautiful and devastating. Travis pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down, bringing himself to Ephraim's eye level. From his bag, he retrieved the football he had brought, a regulation NFL ball, signed with a personal message he had written in the car. I brought you something, he said, placing the ball gently on the bed beside Ephraim's hand. Ephraim's eyes widened slightly as he read the inscription. To Ephraim, the toughest player I know, Travis Kelce. His fingers traced the letters carefully, as if he was memorizing the shape of each one. Do you want to hold it? Travis asked. Ephraim nodded, and Travis helped him lift the football, supporting its weight when the boy's thin arms trembled with the effort. For a moment, Ephraim just held it against his chest, closing his eyes as if he was imagining himself on a field somewhere, running plays and scoring touchdowns. I was supposed to be at a big fancy dinner tonight, Travis said conversationally. Lots of important people in suits, talking about important things. But I figured this was a much better place to spend my evening. Leora's eyes filled with tears at those words, understanding the sacrifice that Travis had made to be here. She had seen the angry comments on social media, the speculation about why he had canceled his appearance. She had felt guilty for even asking. But when Ephraim had specifically requested to meet Travis, she couldn't bear to deny what might be his final wish. Mom says, I'm not going to get better, Ephraim said suddenly, his voice matter-of-fact in the way that only children can manage when discussing the impossible. She says, I'm going to go to heaven soon. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Travis felt the weight of needing to respond to something that had no adequate response. How do you talk to a child about death? How do you offer comfort when there is no comfort to be found? Are you scared? Travis asked gently, deciding that honesty was the only thing he could offer. Ephraim considered the question serious. Sometimes, but Mom says that all the best people go to heaven and that I'll get to see my grandpa again. He taught me how to throw a football before he died. What position did you want to play? Travis asked, following Ephraim's lead away from the heavier topic. Tight end, Ephraim replied immediately, and for the first time since Travis had entered the room, a small smile appeared on his face. Like you. Mom says tight ends are smartest players because they have to know how to catch and block and run routes. Your mom is absolutely right, Travis said, glancing at Leora with genuine respect. It's the most important position on the field, even if the quarterback think they're the stars. Ephraim's smile grew wider, and Travis could see a hint of the vibrant child he must have been before the illness took hold. Will you teach me a play, just in case I get to play football in heaven? The request was so innocent, so hopeful, that Travis had to swallow hard before he could respond. Of course. What kind of play do you want to learn? A touchdown play, Ephraim said without hesitation. The kind that wins the game. Travis stood up and moved to the small open space beside the bed. Okay, here's what we're going to do. This is called a comeback route. You run straight for about 10 yards, then you turn around and come back toward the quarterback. It's perfect because it's reliable. The quarterback knows exactly where you're going to be. Travis demonstrated the route slowly, his movements careful and precise. Ephraim watched intently, his eyes following every step and turn, as if he was memorizing a sacred ritual. The key, Travis explained, is the turn. You have to plant your foot hard and cut back sharp so the defender can't follow you. Like this, he demonstrated again, and Ephraim nodded serious. Can I try? Ephraim asked. Leora started to object. Her son was barely strong enough to sit up unassisted, but Travis caught her eye and shook his head gently. We'll do it right here in bed, he said. Just the arm movement. Travis helped Ephraim sit up a little straighter and guided him through the motions of running the route with his arm. Up, turn, back, hands ready for the catch. Ephraim's movements were slow and shaky, but his concentration was absolute. Perfect, Travis said when they finished. That's exactly how you do it. You're a natural. Ephraim beamed with pride, and for a moment the room seemed brighter, as if his joy was enough to push back against the darkness that had settled over them. Juniper Voss appeared in the doorway. checking on her patient but also witnessing something she had rarely seen in her years of pediatric nursing. The connection between Travis and Ephraim was immediate and genuine, transcending the usual awkwardness that sometimes accompanied celebrity hospital visits. "How are we doing in here?" she asked softly. "Travis taught me a touchdown play," Ephraim announced, his voice stronger than it had been all day, "for when I get to heaven." Juniper's professional composure flickered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "That sounds like very important preparation," she said. "You'll be the best player in Heaven's League." Travis watched this exchange and understood that he was witnessing something extraordinary, a child who was facing death with more grace and courage than most adults could muster. Ephraim wasn't asking for false hope or miracle cures. He was simply asking to be seen, to be remembered, to have his dreams acknowledged, even if they could never be fulfilled. "Travis," Ephraim said quietly, drawing his attention back to the bed, "will you sign something else for me?" "Of course. What would you like me to sign?" Ephraim looked at his mother, who reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook, the kind children use for school, with a blue cover and wide-ruled pages. "This is where I write down all my favorite football plays," Ephraim explained, "and stories about games I watch. Mom helps me spell the hard words." Travis took the notebook reverently, understanding that he was holding something far more precious than any trophy or award. This was a child's collection of dreams, carefully preserved in pencil and crayon, a testament to the power of hope in the face of impossible circumstances. "Where would you like me to sign?" Travis asked. Ephraim pointed to the first blank page he could find. "Right there." But he hesitated, as if what he was about to ask was too bold, too presumptuous. "But what?" Travis encouraged. "Could you write both our names, like we're teammates?" The request hung in the air between them, simple words that carried the weight of a child's deepest wish. Travis looked down at the notebook in his hand, then back at Ephraim's face, and understood that this moment would define not just this, but something fundamental about what it meant to show up for another human being. "Teammate," Travis repeated softly, testing the word. "I like that. What position are you going to play on our team?" "Tight end, like you," Ephraim said immediately. "We can both be tight ends. Is that allowed?" "In our league, we can have as many tight ends as we want," Travis replied, uncapping the pen that Leora handed him. "What should I write?" Ephraim thought for a moment, his young face serious with concentration. "Write Travis and Ephraim, team forever, because even when I go to heaven, I'll still be on your team." Travis felt his throat tighten as he carefully wrote the words in his neatest handwriting across the page. The letters seemed to glow on the paper, transforming a simple notebook into something sacred. When he finished, he handed the book back to Ephraim, who clutched it against his chest as if it were made of gold. "There," Travis said. "Now it's official. You're on my team forever." Ephraim's smile was radiant, brighter than it had been in weeks. Leora watched from her chair, tears streaming down her face, as she witnessed her son experience pure joy in what might be his final day. She had asked for this meeting, hoping to give Ephraim one happy moment, but she was seeing something far more profound. The transformation that occurred when someone chose to see past fame and celebrity to connect with the heart of a child. "Can I tell you a secret?" Ephraim whispered, motioning for Travis to lean closer. Travis bent down until his ear was near Ephraim's mouth, preparing himself for whatever confession or wish this brave little boy wanted to share. "I'm not really scared about dying," Ephraim said quietly, "but I was scared that no one would remember that I loved football, that I was good at catching passes in the backyard before I got sick. Mom took videos, but what if people forget?" The words hit Travis like a physical blow. This child wasn't afraid of death. He was afraid of being forgotten, of having his dreams and passions erased by illness. It was a fear that spoke to something universal and heartbreaking about the human need to be remembered for who we are, not what happened. "Ephraim," Travis said, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him, "I promise you that I will never forget. And every time I play, every time I catch a pass, I'm going to remember my teammate Ephraim, who taught me what real courage looks like." "Really?" Ephraim's eyes widened with wonder. "Really? In fact, I have an idea. What if we make a signal? Something just between teammates. When I catch a touchdown pass, I'll do something special, so you'll know I'm thinking about you." Ephraim's excitement was palpable despite his weakness. "What kind of signal?" Travis thought for a moment, then demonstrated a simple gesture, pointing to the sky with both hands, then placing his hand over his heart. Like this. It means, "For my teammate in heaven." "I love it," Ephraim breathed. "And when I get to heaven, if I can watch your game, I'll know that's for me." "That's exactly right," Travis confirmed. "That's our secret signal, just between teammates." Juniper had been watching from the doorway, and she quietly stepped into the room with her phone in hand. "Would you mind if I took a picture?" she asked softly. "Sometimes families like to have photos from special visits." Leora nodded gratefully, and Travis positioned himself beside Ephraim's bed, both of them holding the signed notebook between them. Ephraim managed to sit up a little straighter, his smile genuine and bright, despite his obvious exhaustion. Just as Juniper was about to take the photo, Ephraim spoke up. "Wait, Travis, can you do the signal? In the picture?" Travis immediately raised both hands toward the ceiling, then placed one hand over his heart. Ephraim tried to copy the gesture, his thin arms shaking with the effort, but his expression determined. The moment Juniper captured was one of pure connection. A professional athlete and a dying child, bound together by a shared understanding that transcended their vastly different circumstances. "Perfect," Juniper said, reviewing the image on her phone. What she saw took her breath away. It wasn't just a photo of a celebrity visit, but a portrait of genuine human connection. Travis's eyes showed unshed tears, while Ephraim's face radiated joy and peace. The image captured something ineffable about hope, friendship, and the power of seeing someone for who they truly are. "Can I see?" Ephraim asked, and Juniper showed him the photo on her phone screen. "We look like real teammates," Ephraim observed with satisfaction. "That's because we are real teammates," Travis replied. "This isn't pretend, Ephraim. This is as real as anything in my life." As the evening progressed, Travis found himself reluctant to leave. He had initially planned to stay for 30 minutes, long enough to brighten a sick child's day and fulfill his obligation to human decency. Sitting in this hospital room, talking with Ephraim about football and dreams and courage, Travis realized he was experiencing something he had rarely encountered in his public life: authenticity. There were no cameras rolling for publicity, no contracts to fulfill, no image to maintain. There was just a little boy who loved football and a man who played it, finding common ground in the most unlikely of circumstances. Ephraim asked thoughtful questions about the game, shared his own observations about strategy and technique, and spoke about his dreams with the kind of clarity that only comes from knowing time is limited. "I need to ask you something important," Ephraim said, as the evening grew later. "When you play your next game, will you think about me? Not because I'm sick, but because I'm your teammate?" "I promise," Travis said without hesitation, "but I need you to promise me something too." "What?" "Promise me that whenever you're in pain, or scared, or feeling alone, you'll remember that you have a teammate who's thinking about you. Even if I'm not here, you're never really alone, because we're on the same team." Ephraim nodded solemnly, understanding that Travis was offering him something more valuable than any autograph or signed jersey. He was offering ongoing connection, a bond that would persist beyond this single meeting. "I promise," Ephraim said. "Teammates stick together. Always," Travis confirmed. As visiting hours came to an end, Travis stood to leave, but Ephraim reached out and caught his hand with surprising strength. "Thank you for canceling your dinner," Ephraim said quietly. "I know it was important, but this was more important to me." Travis squeezed the small hand gently. "This was the most important thing I could have done tonight, Ephraim. Thank you for letting me be on your team." As Travis walked toward the door, Ephraim called out one more time, "Travis, don't forget the signal." Travis turned back and performed their gesture one more time. Hands to the sky, hand to heart. Ephraim beamed and tried to mirror the movement, his effort a testament to determination that transcended physical limitation. Walking down the hospital corridor toward the elevator, Travis felt fundamentally changed by the encounter. The angry social media posts about his canceled appearance seemed trivial now, meaningless noise compared to the profound connection he had just experienced with a dying child who had taught him more about courage and grace in 2 hours than he had learned in years of professional success. Juniper Voss had worked in pediatric oncology for 7 years, and she thought she had seen every possible variation of celebrity hospital visits. Some were perfunctory photo opportunities that lasted exactly long enough to generate positive publicity. Others were genuine but awkward, well-meaning famous people who tried too hard to bring cheer to children who needed something more substantial than forced enthusiasm. But what she had witnessed in room 314 was unlike anything in her experience. As she prepared Ephraim's medications for the evening, she found herself repeatedly glancing at the photo she had taken, struck by something ineffable in the image that seemed to capture more than just a moment in time. In the picture, Travis's hand was positioned over his heart, while his other hand pointed skyward, but his eyes were fixed on Ephraim with an expression of genuine reverence. Ephraim, despite his obvious physical frailty, looked radiant, not with the artificial brightness that adults sometimes brought to sick children, but with authentic joy that seemed to emanate from deep within. Without fully considering the implications, Juniper opened her personal social media account and began typing a caption for the photo. She had never posted anything about her work before, understanding the privacy requirements of her profession, but something about this moment felt too important to keep confined within hospital walls. "Tonight, I witnessed something beautiful," she wrote. "A little boy who loves football more than anything in the world got to meet his hero. But what happened was bigger than that. I watched two people, one famous, one unknown, connect over shared dreams and mutual respect. Sometimes the most important games aren't played on field, but in hospital rooms where courage looks like a child teaching an adult what really matters." She hesitated for a moment before hitting the post button, knowing that sharing a patient photo was against hospital policy, even with faces obscured and permission implied. But the image seemed to demand sharing, as if keeping it private would somehow diminish its power to remind people what human connection looked like. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within an hour, the post had been shared hundreds of times. Within 2 hours, thousands. By midnight, the image was circulating across multiple platforms, accompanied by the story of Travis Kelce's canceled charity and his decision to visit a terminally ill child instead. The narrative that had begun with anger and criticism about the canceled event was rapidly transforming into something entirely different. Comments poured in from people sharing their own stories of loss, hope, and unexpected connection. Parents of sick children thanked Travis for prioritizing what mattered. Healthcare workers shared similar moments they had witnessed in their own facility. Meanwhile, in room 314, Ephraim had fallen asleep clutching his signed notebook, his breathing steady but shallow. Leora sat in her familiar chair, watching her son's peaceful expression and marveling at the transformation she had witnessed over the course of the evening. For weeks, Ephraim had been withdrawn and listless, his spirit seeming to fade along with his physical strength. But tonight, he had been animated, engaged, genuinely happy in a way she had almost forgotten was possible. "Mrs. Penniman?" Juniper knocked softly on the door frame. "I wanted to let you know that I shared the photo from tonight on my social media. I hope that's okay. It's getting a lot of attention, and I thought you should know." Leora looked up from her vigil beside Ephraim's bed. "What kind of attention?" "People are sharing Ephraim's story, and Travis's decision to come here instead of going to his event. It's becoming quite a phenomenon online." Leora felt a complex mix of emotions at this news. Part of her had always wanted the world to know about her remarkable son, to understand the depth of his character and the beauty of his spirit. But another part of her was protective, wary of having their most intimate moments exposed to public scrutiny. "Is it positive attention?" she asked carefully. "Very positive," Juniper assured her. "People are calling Travis a hero for choosing to be here, and they're saying beautiful things about Ephraim's courage and spirit. I think this might help people understand what you've been going through and what children like Ephraim deal with every day." At his desk in his downtown office, Corbett Winslow was experiencing his own revelation about the power of authentic human connection. The charity gala had proceeded without its keynote speaker, raising less money than anticipated, but still successful by most measures. However, the real story was unfolding online, where the narrative about Travis's absence had evolved from criticism to widespread admiration. Corporate sponsors who had initially threatened to withdraw their support were now calling to express their appreciation for Travis's decision. Several had pledged additional donations to pediatric cancer research, inspired by the story of Ephraim, and the reminder that their charitable giving was about real children facing real struggle. Sometime, Corbett found himself thinking, the most powerful fundraising happens when you're not trying to fundraise at all. The social media explosion continued throughout the night and into the following morning. News outlets picked up the story, interviewing child psychologists about the importance of authentic connections for terminally ill children. Sports commentators discussed the character it took to prioritize human relations over professional obligation. But perhaps the most powerful responses came from ordinary people sharing their own experiences with loss, illness, and unexpected kindness. The photo of Travis and Ephraim had become a symbol for something larger than itself, a reminder that in a world often focused on surface appearances and manufactured drama, genuine human connection still had the power to move hearts and change perspective. Travis woke up to hundreds of notifications on his phone, but for the first time in his career, the social media attention felt secondary to something more important. His thoughts were immediately drawn back to room 314, to Ephraim's peaceful smile, and the promise they had made to each other about their secret signal. The angry comments about the cancelled charity gala had been buried under an avalanche of support and gratitude. People were calling him heroic for choosing to visit a dying child, but Travis knew the truth was more complex than that. He hadn't made a heroic sacrifice. He had received a gift. Ephraim had shown him what courage looked like, what grace under pressure meant, what it was to face the unthinkable with dignity and hope. Dr. Sarah Martinez, Ephraim's primary oncologist, arrived at the hospital that morning to find her patient in the best spirits he had shown in weeks. His vital signs were still concerning, his prognosis unchanged, but something fundamental had shifted in his emotional state. He was alert, talkative, eager to share the details of his visit with Travis. "He gave me a signal," Ephraim told her excitedly, demonstrating the gesture with as much energy as his weakened condition allowed. "It's our secret. When he scores touchdown, he'll do this signal, so I know he's thinking about me." Dr. Martinez had seen many children face terminal diagnoses, and she understood the importance of hope, connection, and meaning in their final days. Medical treatment could only do so much. Sometimes healing came from unexpected sources, in forms that couldn't be measured or prescribed. "That sounds like a very special signal," he said. "How does it make you feel, knowing you have that connection with Travis?" "Like I matter," Ephraim replied simply. "Like even if I can't play football for real, I'm still part of the team." The profound simplicity of that statement would stay with Dr. Martinez throughout her career. Here was a child who wasn't asking for miracles or false promises, but simply for recognition that his dreams and passions had value, that his brief life had meaning beyond his illness. As the day progressed, the viral spread of Ephraim's story continued to grow, reaching people around the world who found themselves moved by the image of a famous athlete and a dying child connected by something as simple and profound as shared dream. The photo had transcended its original context to become a symbol of hope, authenticity, and the power of choosing what truly mattered. By the end of the week, the image of Travis and Ephraim had been viewed by millions of people across social media platforms, news websites, and television broadcasts. What had started as criticism about a canceled charity event had transformed into a global conversation about priorities, compassion, and the unexpected ways that human connection could emerge in the darkest circumstances. The Kansas City Chiefs organization issued a statement supporting Travis's decision, emphasizing their commitment to community outreach and the importance of their players' involvement in meaningful charitable work. The Children's Foundation, despite the initial disappointment about the canceled gala, saw a surge in donations that far exceeded what the event would have raised, as people inspired by Ephraim's story contributed to pediatric cancer research. But the most significant impact was felt in the smallest space, room 314 at Children's Mercy Hospital, where Ephraim Calder continued to fight his battle with grace that inspired everyone who encountered him. The attention surrounding his story had brought visitors, cards, and gifts from around the world. But what mattered most to him was the promise Travis had made about their secret signal. Leora Penniman found herself overwhelmed by the outpouring of support from strangers who had been touched by her son's story. Letters arrived daily from parents who had lost children to cancer, from survivors sharing their own experiences, from people who simply wanted Ephraim to know that his courage had moved them. Each message reinforced what she had always known, that her son possessed something special that transcended his illness. "Mom," Ephraim said one afternoon as she read him some of the letters. "Do you think Travis will really remember the signal when he plays?" "I think Travis is a man who keeps his promise," Leora replied, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. "And I think you made a very deep impression on him." 3 days later, Travis took the field for the Chiefs' next home game, carrying with him the weight of a promise made to a dying child. In the locker room before the game, he had told his teammates about Ephraim, about their secret signal, about the courage he had witnessed in that hospital room. The story had moved the entire team, creating a sense of purpose that went beyond winning or losing. In the second quarter, Travis caught a 15-yard touchdown pass that put the Chiefs ahead by 2 touchdowns. As he crossed into the end zone, time seemed to slow. The crowd roared, his teammates celebrated, but Travis's mind was focused on a small hospital room across the city where a brave little boy was watching. He planted his feet firmly in the end zone, raised both hands toward the sky, then placed his right hand over his heart. The gesture lasted only a few seconds, but the television cameras captured it perfectly, broadcasting the moment to millions of viewers who had been following Ephraim's story throughout the week. In room 314, Ephraim sat up in his hospital bed with more energy than he had shown in days, pointing excitedly at the television screen. "Mom! Mom! He did it! He did our signal!" His voice was weak, but filled with pure joy, and Leora felt tears streaming down her face as she watched her son experience the profound happiness of knowing that someone had kept their promise. Juniper Voss, who was checking on Ephraim during her shift, witnessed the moment and understood immediately what she was seeing. "He remembered," she said softly, and Ephraim nodded vigorously, his eyes shining with an inner light that his illness couldn't diminish. "He's my teammate," Ephraim whispered. He really meant it. The moment was captured by news cameras in the stadium and social media posts from viewers who recognized the significance of Travis's gesture. Within minutes, Saka teammates to the end was trending worldwide as people shared the story of the promise between a professional athlete and a terminally ill child. After the game, Travis was approached by reporters asking about the unusual celebration, and he spoke candidly about Ephraim, about the promise they had made, and about how meeting this remarkable child had changed his perspective on what truly mattered in life. "Ephraim taught me that being tough isn't about how hard you can hit or how much pain you can endure on a football field," Travis said to the gathered media. "Real toughness is facing the impossible with grace, finding joy in small moments, and caring more about others than yourself. That little boy is the toughest player I've ever met." The video of Travis's post-game interview was shared millions of times, further amplifying Ephraim's story and inspiring countless people who were dealing with their own struggle. Messages poured in from around the world, from other professional athletes who pledged to visit sick children in their own cities, from healthcare workers who shared stories of other brave young patients, from ordinary people who had been reminded of what really mattered in life. But the most important audience for Travis's gesture was a single 8-year-old boy in a hospital bed who had been given the precious gift of knowing that his dreams mattered, that his courage was recognized, and that even in his darkest moment, he was not alone. Dr. Martinez noted a significant improvement in Ephraim's mood and outlook following the game, observing that hope and human connection could sometimes provide healing that medicine alone could not achieve. While his physical condition remained critical, his spirit seemed strengthened by the knowledge that his story had touched so many lives. Over the following weeks, as Ephraim's condition fluctuated, Travis made several more visits to the hospital, each one reinforcing their bond and providing moments of joy that seemed to transcend the sadness of the situation. During one visit, Ephraim presented Travis with a drawing he had made. 2 stick figures on a football field, both wearing jerseys with the same number, both raising their hands to the sky. "This is us," Ephraim explained, his voice growing weaker, but his spirit remaining strong, "playing on the same team in heaven." Travis accepted the drawing with the reverence it deserved, understanding that he was receiving something more precious than any trophy or award he had ever won. The simple artwork captured the essence of their connection. 2 souls who had found each other across vastly different circumstances and created something beautiful together. The viral nature of their story continued to generate positive outcomes far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. The Children's Foundation established the Ephraim Calder Fund for Pediatric Cancer Research, which raised over $5 million in its first month. Other professional athletes began making regular hospital visits, inspired by the example Travis had set. Hospitals across the country reported increased volunteer applications from people who wanted to make a difference in the lives of sick children. But perhaps the most lasting impact was the shift in perspective that Ephraim's story created for everyone who encountered. In a world often obsessed with celebrity drama and manufactured controversy, the genuine connection between a professional athlete and a dying child served as a powerful reminder of what authentic human relationship looked like. As winter approached and Ephraim's condition continued to deteriorate, the visits from Travis became even more precious. During what would be their final meeting, Ephraim was too weak to sit up, but his eyes remained bright and alert as Travis sat beside his bed. "I want to tell you something important," Ephraim whispered, his voice barely audible. "When I get to heaven, I'm going to keep watching your game, and every time you do our signal, I'll know you're thinking about me." "I'll do it every time I score," Travis promised, his voice thick with emotion. "Every single time for the rest of my career." "And Travis?" Ephraim's eyes found his teammate's face one last time. "Thank you for making me feel like a real football player, even if it was just for a little while." Travis squeezed the small hand gently, understanding that he had been given the privilege of witnessing extraordinary courage and grace. "You are a real football player, Ephraim. The best teammate I've ever had." When Ephraim Calder passed away peacefully 2 days later, surrounded by his mother's love and the knowledge that his story had touched millions of lives, Travis kept his promise. In every subsequent game, every touchdown celebration included their secret signal: hands to the sky, hand to the heart, a gesture that had become known to football fans around the world as a tribute to the toughest player who never got to take the field. The photo of Travis and Ephraim, taken by Juniper Voss in a moment of spontaneous inspiration, became one of the most shared images in social media history. But more than its viral reach, the image captured something timeless about human connection, about the power of seeing past surface difference to recognize shared dreamed mutual dignity. Leora Penniman kept the signed notebook that Travis had inscribed with "Travis and Ephraim, Team Forever," and she often opened it to read those words when she needed to remember that her son's brief life had mattered, that his dreams had been acknowledged, and that love could transcend even the most heartbreaking circumstances. The story of Travis Kelce's canceled charity gala had evolved into something no one could have predicted, a testament to the unexpected ways that authentic human connection could emerge from the simplest acts of kindness, and a reminder that sometimes the most important victories happen far from any stadium or spotlight, in quiet hospital rooms where courage wears the face of a child who refuses to let circumstance define the boundaries of hope.